Game Fest. When it, woo! Yeah, oh, sorry, that was so loud. Sorry, everyone in the room. I did suggest I didn't need to be mic'd because of how loud I am, so it's fair warning. I have a very special guest with me today. This is, of course, the wonderful Angela. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a few questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
I've already partially answered this, but could you tell me your name and what you do?
So, I'm Angela, full name Angela Sae-Lam, and I am a 3D modeler that works in the animation industry and have a background in TV commercials, some real-time work, animation for streaming, and also training artists in the 3D, pretty much educational side of things, as well as onboarding artists in the studio setting.
Amazing. You're a person of many talents, you know? I did hear a rumour, though, that you didn't start in this industry. Perhaps you have a degree in something we might not expect.
Gosh. No, a lot of people start like, oh, it's interesting. I've got a whole story behind this. So, I actually haven't studied exclusively to be in the CG industry at all. I was a studious kid, so basically, parents are like, hey, don't waste your marks. Use it on something good. And so you just aspire for the highest mark, and then I ended up applying to do advanced science.
Ooh.
And combine that with arts and extend that to do honours in pharmacology. And so I spent 5 years doing that before I made the pivot to actually do 3D stuff.
What caused that pivot? Was it something you were always interested in? Or something you kind of gained an interest in I assume in an effort to escape pharmacology? Not that if anyone listening is in pharmacology, I'm sure it's great.
Well, as a kid, I've always liked art. So I always drew. I followed my sister in drawing a lot, and a lot of games were very influential. Games, anime, that type of thing was very big for me. So it always lurked at the back of my mind that I wanted to do it, but I was a little terrified of doing it because, no one I know has done it before. So you apply, you go digital media, computer sciences, you leave it until close to the deadline, you're like, oh no, flip, I'm doing science and arts. Because, everyone is okay with that, I'm okay with that, I can follow a known path. So I will do that.
Absolutely. It's so scary taking that first step, particularly when, you don't know that many people who have already done it. Do you think that that's informed why now you're sometimes focused on helping others kind of get into this industry?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I think coming from a background where you're almost trained to go for the most predictable, the most safe thing because it saves time, it saves money, you kind of don't look to anyone else for a bit. It's kind of isolating. So in order to step out of that, you kind of have to find your own way, and it's terrifying in a sense. And so for me, it took me doing a whole honours degree to realize I kind of don't know what else I would do with this degree if I came out with it, because technically I'm not as inclined to apply to a job using that anyway. So if anyone tells me that I'm unemployed because I do arts or if I do science, I'm equally unemployed if I don't want to apply for the job.
Yeah, that is a very good lesson. It's, you want to be doing something you want to do and not just because you have a degree in it. Would you, so this was not a planned question, but would you make a game, hear me out, about pharmacology?
I would consider it, yes.
What would that look like? Sorry to put you on the spot. I just think could be a really neat thing.
Oh, it's funny because my background when I did my honours here was I was making resins to separate mixtures of natural products. So natural things, you churn it up, you get some chemicals, you don't know how to separate it. But what my research area was, you make resins so you can pick and choose what you separate out. But when you ever explain it to someone, they're like, the heck? And I was like, the heck? For 4 out of my 5 years before I'm like, it's a filtration method. No one told me this. I need visuals to go with this. And so
it could be a perfect game.
Gamify that. Things where you have a filter, you can pick things, you can choose the real cool things that you have a magnet for, and you can change the things you can select for.
I mean, almost like a potion craft-esque, we'll talk. Don't worry, we'll talk. You spent 5 years kind of doing this degree. How long then have you been in the animation industry? You can lie, we won't know.
So I have technically been in the animation industry for almost 5 years, plus almost 2 years teaching. So that's where we're at.
It's all right. I turn 32 next week, I understand. We'll talk later. Your 30s are really fun, don't worry, I promise. Cool. So, like, a fair amount of time. Did you feel like teaching was a natural step? Like, obviously, it's helped that you have this background where you haven't felt like you've had that pathway laid out for you. So, is that how you then got into teaching? That you were like, oh, this is like a place to help?
Kind of, yeah. Well, also because I was very academic inclined, my first thing to do was learn how to tutor people because I couldn't make a job out of anything else except knowing that I knew how to study well. So I went, hey, I know how to study. Do you want me to help you study? And then that became a thing that was always in the background as I was even doing the 5 years of university. And then once I came, 30 art students, started volunteering and stuff, I realized people didn't know how to volunteer. They didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, teaching opportunity. Goes back to the college that I actually graduated from. Yeah. And then volunteered a talk to then start becoming a teaching assistant in the background until they were asking me, you like doing this? Do you want to be paid for it? And then,
always a good thing. Always aim to be paid for the stuff.
So that slowly transitioned into, a classroom assistant. Now you can actually know all the content. You know how to talk to students, assess what they need, and then you start transitioning into a full-fledged teacher.
Amazing. So I too do teaching, so I'm particularly fascinated about this. But I should ask, obviously, today is not a typical day because you're here, but if it was a typical day in the life of a 3D artist in the animation industry, what would that look like? It feels very, shiny to me, but I'm happy to know otherwise if that's the case.
Very shiny. Yes. So I think to dispel the myth, it is an office job.
Okay.
Number one, it is an office job. You wake up in the morning, you turn up in studio. Some people are like, I need a coffee. So they'll take a coffee. Some studios are generous. They'll provide breakfast. So you mingle a bit and then you get into your your desk and then you check your emails. As a 3D artist, what you do is throughout a week, you get targets. So you produce 3D models for a current production or project that you're on, but you're assigned certain targets to be able to finish by a certain amount of time by the end of the week.
Okay.
And so what happens is, you go in, you get an actual briefing from your supervisor who knows how that thing that you're going to make is going to be used further down this, production. And then you'll be the one who has to try to make things that cater for that as much as possible. So you start making that. It can take a day or two, depending if it's a prop. If it's a character, you can get up to a week because in my experience, I'm working in TV streaming and they have a tighter timeline. And during the day you work on that, kind of in your own little bubble at your machine, you can ask people nearby. And later on in the day, they will have another review session, which is called dailies. And that's when you present where you're up to. You ask questions as to, hey, this doesn't make sense based on what we need it for. What do you suppose we do? That kind of thing. You can collaborate in those types of meetings.
Yeah, great.
Which helps when you're able to articulate and pinpoint things that you want feedback on. And then you continue churning on that until the next day. And then you start the cycle over again. So that's pretty much
and occasionally you come and visit us, which is also a lot of fun. Just kind of pulling out one thing you just said, this idea of feedback. I wondered if you could speak to the importance of feedback, because I know definitely for me, if I'm not confident in something, I don't want that feedback, but I do desperately need that feedback. Do you have any advice for how we might figure out how to get the feedback, how to deal with the feedback?
Feedback-wise, I think it's there's an art associated with giving feedback and receiving feedback and seeking feedback as well. And a lot of students, I would highly encourage students to practice doing that while in the educational environment before you get into industry, because you will have the extra layer of being unfamiliar with the people that will deter you from doing any of that at all. So for me, I did a lot of that in the actual educational side of things, but I was an introvert, so that's it. I will seek out my own feedback. I will screenshot my own thing. I will draw over it myself. That's my feedback. So it's not the best practice, which is why if you get more exposure to actually seeking someone else out, it'll be easier for you to open up and do that to unfamiliar people later on. And for me, there's actually like a weird little transitional stage where when I was first a junior artist that was really, really anxious, you might end up seeking too much feedback.
And then you don't know where to go, presumably.
Yeah. So part of it is you ask for feedback. You then have to filter for how much is actionable and what is within your control to do, what is valid from depending on what the person's background is, if they've given it to you and is in alignment with what the current task you really want to do and achieve is, and then go from there. Yeah. But the frequency, you kind of have to like learn a little self-sufficiency to then decide, is this something I will action on? Do I follow up on this? Or is this actually something to shelf? Because something that sometimes you'll get is this, I think the most memorable feedback that I got after being that level of anxious when I first started a role was I had a lead mention, what will you do if I'm not here?
Oh.
So the one thing is you might know more than you do, but you won't be aware of it in that moment as well. So part of it is also owning it, to actually take it on and try your best first and then seek further feedback.
Yeah, and I guess putting your best foot forward, not being afraid that might change again, you know, that you kind of might have to adapt, but you've tried your best in that moment and then you can seek the feedback. So thank you.
But also, don't try to defend some of the decisions that were bad. Just say, oh, I'll take that on board. Because basically, a person doesn't know your character well enough that defensiveness might actually affect reception of how inclined they are to then give you feedback in future.
And I guess so much better to take that and then shelve it if you don't want it than to be like, actually, don't give it to me at all.
Learn grace, basically.
I like that. Now, this may be a bit of an unfair question, but in a world where you can only choose to do one form of media or art, would you prefer traditional or digital? I'm sorry. Because, I mean, obviously you do a lot of digital work for your work.
But, like, my background came from traditional as well. So both medias teach you very different things and will use different parts of your brain. So depending on what you enjoy using more, I would be more inclined to do that. But interestingly enough, I actually like costuming.
Oh.
So the 2D illustration side is like, hey, I found a more tangible outlet, I will costume. The digital side means I can make characters. I can use what I learned to costume to do the digital stuff with. So it's one of those
it's hard to extract them.
Yeah, so there'll be a medium that's not traditional and that's not digital. That in between, I will still want something that wants a bit of both. So I will not.
So it's impossible to answer. Oh no. I mean, maybe there has to be a third thing. It's like you can do costuming, but only for the theatre. Like it's, a third kind of something like that. No, I think that's really valid. It sounds like they're so intertwined. Does that then feed into your process quite consistently, that you think of things in that, both the traditional and the digital way, even if you know it's going to be, say, a digital product? Yeah.
Like it's like the perspectives that you get from working traditionally pretty much like prompts you to plan for commitment for certain things, and then also I think iterate more quickly sometimes. And then that gives you a different perspective on viewing things that can be more of a time sink when you actually get into the 3D side of things, where part of your time, like all your allowed time, should factor in the fact that you'll be rotating a model for 20 minutes to assess what you're going to do with it. Because some people don't factor that in, and you'll see the quality of the model go downhill the less time you've given someone to assess the shapes of things. So the traditional really informs that. The 3D gets you to be more creative technically in terms of, did you turn it on? Did you turn it off again? Those types of things. But then you have the more complex troubleshooting, which means you have to be systematic about how you figure out what is causing the problem. And that's where my science background comes in handy.
Amazing. It sounds like the absolute perfect kind of storm together. The keynote speaker, Luke, talked a lot about serendipity, and it sounds like that also plays a factor in kind of how you've then approached your work. Just, really interesting.
And it still keeps, like, serendipity still kicks in at every stage of like actual just finding work as well, which is like how I found my first like industry, like prolonged industry role. Like the first 2 jobs that I had were basically I applied for an internship. Great. They saw that I had an artistic eye. They took me on. That was 7 months and a half. Went to teaching, but then I did an expression of interest to the animation studio for modeling. That's my bread and butter, but never heard back. And then out of nowhere, I was like, maybe I can talk to people. I can do production coordination.
Sure.
So I would message the recruiter at the time, say, hey, actually, I retract my interest in modeling. I'm interested in production coordination. So maybe let me know if there's something available when it comes up. And then what happens is the recruiter messages me out of nowhere while I'm still teaching actively. Starting to get bored of teaching for a bit. And then they say, we've got a coordination role coming up, but I've noticed you're a modeler. The contract for coordination is actually shorter than the modeling one. Which one did you want to interview for? I was like, what? I can't.
You didn't contact what? You want me that much? I can choose.
I can choose. It's also modeling. My heart spoke out first. I was like, okay, modeling it is. And so I interviewed, and then I ended up at the studio for like 4 years, and just like rolled onto project after project. And the first role basically was a character art role, which usually isn't something you get as a junior artist because it needs more time to know your anatomy and that kind of stuff. So for me, they're like, make props, make some proxy sets and stuff like that. Really background stuff. But now we see that you can handle the tools, the trust is built. Let's do some characters. This is a very character-centric show. I'm like, oh, amazing. And then I've just been like churning through more and more characters, and now I can still say that I'm a character artist. And that was just pure luck. Otherwise, I'd be making crates, That's your entry level. Your entry into the 3D industry. You make the background stuff because they want to know that you can deliver things with low risk.
I mean, it sounds like a little bit of luck and serendipity, but also a lot of you putting yourself out there, kind of and being like, if I can't do this thing, I'll try and do this thing. And then look at you now. It's amazing. Do you have any recent work that you can speak to that you're especially proud of?
Especially proud of? Well, I mean, I technically on like the biggest project that I've spent time on. It's like a huge chunk of my career. It's like 3 years, 3.5 years maybe, on the Marvel What If animation.
Sorry, I didn't know this. What? I mean, so amazing. Sorry, yeah.
All the character stuff that I was doing. Yeah, so basically, I went from like junior artist until like mid artist, and then they trusted me with more senior work because then the senior artists had to move on to other projects.
Right.
So they're like, oh, we know you can deliver this stuff. We can trust you. You've got the responsibility. And you want to train other people? Oh. So that just meant we could keep like that level of standard going for a while. Yeah. That's the project that I ended up working most closely with both like the adjacent departments. And that doesn't always happen in studios because people get like funneled into their own specializations and that type of stuff. But when you actually have a smaller team, you get a better sense of what the departments that depend on your work need and how to communicate with them better, because the more siphoned off people are into their little departments, the more likely it is for people to go us and them. And so the communication, the relationship building is very, very like cold, very distant. So sometimes when you can be accommodating, you kind of don't want that kind of thing, right? So when you're in a small team like that, you build trust, you learn how to do that, and you learn how to see people behind the actual product that you are handling with all the time.
Yeah, they're not kind of that annoying person who keeps asking me to redo this one thing. Yeah. They're, my good friends who I get a coffee with, who is valid in asking me to fix this thing.
So I'd have stuff where it's like, the senior lead artist or something like that would be like, coffee, tea, and then we'll just run off and have tea and stuff like that. But then eventually he'd be like lurking and be like, why are you doing it like that? And I'm like, is it wrong? And he's like, no, you could do it like this. And then instead of being defensive about receiving feedback when someone does that, you're like, well, this guy means well. Yeah. So, I'll give it a try. Like, he doesn't mean to, be at my art. He takes coffee with me. He's not like got anything personal.
He doesn't hate me. He just wants me to do better.
So you have that kind of rapport that is really important in the team, and you don't really get that often. So super proud of the product that I actually, produced with that team, more because of the team experience that I had with them.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, thank you for sharing. I guess we've kind of gestured it a bit in that answer, but do you have tips about applying to work in this field? Or about working in it? I mean, I think definitely the relational aspect is really important. And I am sure means that people will keep you in mind if there's other opportunities or other things they want you to work on. But do you have any other tips? Oh, please.
Mainly because I am very service-minded, so I've always volunteered to things. Those things means that you put yourself in situations where you have no guaranteed return. As people become more limited on time and resources, that's the first thing at the top of your mind. What do I get in return? That's not a very productive mindset sometimes, especially if you want to try something new. A lot of the times, those environments force you to do things that you're not comfortable with. So you have no idea what's going to come at you anyway. So I would volunteer for that because now the most valuable thing for me is using my time. I need to find something useful that comes out of the time that I've actually turned up at this random event for. And so I'd highly encourage you to volunteer for things that will force you to be in the position to then learn things and cross paths with people that you don't expect. Because the older you get, the less mixing of social circles you'll get. Unless you go to a D&D game, maybe, or board games night, right?
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah.
Right? There's less mixing. Unless you put yourself out there, you will not be able to explore these opportunities. So especially for people who are very new to the industry, very new, you need to be curious, socially curious. You might not be socially outgoing, but socially curious to turn up at things because I was terrified.
Yeah.
Peak introvert with me studying, it was I will sit in the corner facing the wall and no one can see my computer. And I won't talk to someone until they come and ask me things because they're interested in my work. And then I can talk about the work because I don't have to talk about myself. So there's stuff like that. You get practice when you volunteer. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is just to learn to build relationships with people, with people as people. Because the nature of this industry is people change jobs and companies very quickly. Not even this industry at this stage, I think. The current employment climate, basically. Yeah. People will change jobs very quickly. And you can't just connect over the fact that this person works at this place or this person does this because it's going to change in a few months. You strike up a conversation, how is that gig going? They're I'm not doing it anymore. So it isn't as productive in terms of reconnecting over that, and it just becomes a cold connection. So if you can volunteer, you spend time going to lunch together, you do other activities as human beings together, you can still see each other as human beings when the job situation changes.
Yeah.
And that helps build the community if someone falls out of a job. And that's reality-wise becoming more of a norm, but what you need is a strong support network. And
that's how you get that, right? By not just saying, I'll be friends with this person because they're at this company and I want to work there. By being actually, who is this person? I've gotten to know them. It's great that they're working at that company, but that's not the foundation.
Yeah, and you'll get it as well, where basically you'll see a job come up and you're well, I'm not that person. I don't do that role. But that studio is really good. I've heard really good things about this studio. I know someone who does this thing, though. So because someone's livelihood is now tied to their job, you helping them by just referring, hey, I saw this job, is why referrals are so important to people as well. So if you look out for someone will look out for you in the future as well.
Yeah. And I guess you never know where that's gonna happen.
Yeah, so serendipity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That has been our 25 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give you a big round of applause.
Thanks for coming. Hopefully that was, valuable in some form.
And please do go to the live showcase, which is happening this is going to make sense for anyone streaming, just kind of that way, from 2 till 4. Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much. We're going to temporarily pause for a few minutes while we move around.
Yeah.
Thank